Hello, everybody. Today I wanted to talk to you about one of the most important parts of my process when I teach my students. So I call the overall learning process of moving your body the flow of movement, specifically with choreography or like intentionally wanting to put a group of movements together or even improvisation, right? So there's a particular way to approach it that I love to do because I found it has been very effective for my students, and everything builds upon each other. So they're building blocks that stack your information from previous things I've taught you in order for you to continue growing and developing your skill with learning belly dance. So the first part of my process is called micro movement. So I define micro movement as going slow and intentionally enough in order to be aware of everything that is going on in your body and feeling everything that's going in your body, whether it's muscle engagement, muscle disengagement, where your weight placement is, any of those things count into micro movement. So why is this important to you when you are learning? Micro movement is so important because it is a phenomenal solution for the following things. If you're moving too fast, just a little bit faster than you could be, and you're not getting the movement. That's one great way that micro movement helps that issue. The other thing that tends to happen is that people keep doing the same thing over and over again and reiterate the thing that you don't want. So if you're, let's say, doing a hip drop, and you're doing the hip drop, but you notice that you're coming out like this, the problem with this is that you continue going at the same pace, trying to get the movement, but aren't aware of what is actually happening to produce that movement versus the movement that you want to actually achieve. So I love micro movement for this reason, and we're going to dive into this a little bit more, but I love it for this reason because it takes you to slow down and then you correct as you go, which is amazing. The other thing that I have found that is a huge problem for a lot of you and a huge challenge or concern that you have is that you feel disconnected from your body. You don't know what's going on. Your body awareness is very minimal. You're like, I'm not sure where my limbs and my body are through space. It's kind of just, you're like kind of making the motions, but you're not sure how, you're not present. You don't really know how you feel until someone actually asks you how you feel. You're just kind of like, what? What's happening, right? So I love micro movement for this because what it does is it brings you back to connecting with your body. So if you're experiencing disconnect from your body, if you notice that you continue to do the same mistakes over and over again with a particular movement, the hip lift example, that's one thing that if you're experiencing that, this is for you. And then the other thing is going just too fast to not be able to catch on to the movement. So if you're doing any of those three things, I really want you to pay attention. So let's talk about the micro movement, about how I defined it, which is going slow enough so you can be intentional, so you can be aware and feel everything that's happening in your body and even in your mind. So why do you want to do that? Why do you want to go so slow? There's a couple reasons why you would want to go this slow. One, it literally gives your brain a chance to catch up with your body, so it registers what is actually going on. Two, when you're learning something new, you'll notice if you kind of look back through your life when you've learned something, if you've either had fun or you felt relaxed versus feeling stressed, you learned and retained the information better. There was a more optimal experience around the learning that had you like, oh, yes, I remember. Sometimes we learn very well from stressful experiences, but it's not the way we would desire or truly ideally want to learn, right? So when you're learning from this micro movement perspective and you're going so slow and intentionally, and like I talked about, feeling the muscles engage, disengage, what ends up happening is you're able to feel when you are moving in particular ways that is either in line with what you want or not in line with what you want. Meaning, if I'm doing this hip drop again or hip lift again, and I'm going out like this, and I just keep doing this, but I'm not sure why, micro movement is this. I'm going to put myself in the starting position, and I'm going to start moving my body how I think it needs to move to achieve the movement. So I'm going slow enough. There's a different tempo of slow for every person. It just matters on your own experience, that you go slow enough that you're like, oh, I feel this like outward movement over here. I also feel that the weight shifts over my pinky toe as I push out. I notice that my body comes to the side here. My vision changes. So that's what I'm talking about. You're going that slow and that intentionally that you catch on to all of these moments. Now, the cool thing is when that's happening, you're like, shit, that's not what I want. The cool thing is when you know what you are wanting to go for, I tell my students, this is what you don't want and this is what you want. So they're very clear when they start heading down the pathway of movement, when they start moving their body. If they start heading in one direction, they know when to start adjusting, right? I want my hip to come up into my rib, right? In this particular hip lift, I want it to come up in here. I don't want to bounce, and I don't want any pain on the outside of my hip, which I found when students do this, they can get pain on the outside because they're not consciously controlling the body into doing it well. So now, if you notice, I will go out here versus like, oh, no, I feel myself coming away from my middle versus staying middle, and I should feel my hip come up and in. So when you know what you're going for, the minute you start deviating from what you want, you can adjust in the moment versus waiting till you've just reiterated the non-desired pathway and made that pathway stronger and then starting over. You don't need to start over. You just need to correct along the way. If you notice it here and you're like, oh shit, bring it back in. Oh, that feeling? You're so aware, okay? So this is really important in your learning process. This is what I teach my students. You go slowly and intentionally and just be present. The other thing that is so helpful with having this micro movement in your dancing, especially as a beginner, is it teaches you to get connected with your body so much so that you can feel how you feel, be present to that emotion, and dance from there. So typically what happens is we're going so fast through movement, like here, and then here, and then here. And as a beginner, it is very difficult for us to catch on as to what's happening. It just seems like a blink of an eye versus like when I'm here and I can feel my body feel graceful. When I can feel like, ooh, I feel beautiful. I feel empowered. All of those feelings, sometimes it takes a little bit of slowing down to get with the program of, I feel this way. Holy shit, this is amazing, right? Because when you're flying through this, you don't have a chance to catch up. And when it comes to Raqs Sharqi, dancing comes from the feeling. It will always come from your feeling. So if you're feeling stressed, you'll dance stressed. If you're feeling love, you'll dance from a place of love. If you're feeling gratitude, you'll dance from a place of gratitude. If you're feeling fear, nervousness, you'll dance from there. So if you can get present by going slowly and intentionally in the beginning, and you'll cultivate the skill to slowly speed it up into your own personal tempo, when you can go slowly and intentionally enough in the beginning, you start honing in on, how am I feeling? What is happening in my body right now that allows me to dance in a way that I truly want? This is why I move so slowly with some of the tutorials with you all, because I want you to see that there's the opportunity and the growth happens here, and everything is built upon here. Because when you move too fast, or you're not paying attention to your body and you're getting that disconnect and you keep repeating the same mistakes, or you're going so fast that you just can't get the move in general, right? Even learning, it's because you're not going slowly and intentionally and working on the micro movement level. So If you are like, holy shit, mind blown with this, I want you to come and join me in my membership, because my whole process is built with this type of foundation. Slowly, intentionally, mindfully, and from a place of feeling, which is what Raqs Sharqi is based on. It's not a slew of movements that you just put together and hope it works. It is designed to come from you internally within the guideline of Oriental movement, so you can move real to you and authentic, and also in a way that makes you feel the way you want to feel. So join my membership. The link is below. The link is also in my bio. Feel free to message me if you have any questions. But I wanted to share this part of my process with you because I feel it's very important for you, especially as a beginner, to understand that when you cultivate this slow and intentional movement, you will progress more quickly. And all the complex movement that you'll develop later will have such a strong and beautiful foundation that it will come more easily than if you don't build it at the micromovement level. All right, I look forward to dancing with you all soon, and I'll see you in the studio.